Hello.
Hello guys, a very good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning, sir. Good morning.
Yes. So before we get into this SQL session for today, I would like to know from you guys, from anyone, what is SQL and what do you know about it? Anyone would be willing to start up?
SQL is a structured query language which is used for updation, deletion, and query.
It is used for data management and like anything, updation, deletion, or adding a new record or deleting some records or updating some records. Anything can be done with. It's a
Updating
it's a basic. It's a basic. What we call it, data management language. You can say it.
It is mainly used for to retrieve the queries from the database in the required manner in the multiple combinations, for which I think this structured query language will be most useful for us.
Basically, it is to manage the data.
The structured query language is all about insertion, deletion, updation, and modification of the existing database. We insert the new data as per the dynamic changes happening in any organization and retrieve the information in the tabular format, so that the data can be converted into information in an understandable and presentable way. And there are different different queries, as said, DDL, DCL, DML, and DQL. So DML is all about manipulation, and DQL is query, which is particularly of select query. So these are the various commands we use to retrieve the data from the database. And procedures, cursors, and these are the various other standard PL/SQL functions and procedures we use to get the data from the database.
I think this language helps us to communicate with the database. We need a language to communicate with any of the person. Like the same way, I think this SQL is a communicator between a user and the database, where we can speak with the database in the required manner, like pulling the queries, whatever it is.
Correct. So many
in
answers.
simple words,
yes,
in simple words, it is used to. In simple words, it is used to talk to the data in a DBMS.
Yes. Okay.
And
So,
each and every record in every table is is represented by one single primary key, and there is also a foreign key that helps to connect the two different tables from the database.
okay. So we'll try to get into all those things, because as we are starting off introduction, many people might have an idea of what is SQL and how it is used, what are the different aspects will be involved in SQL. And most of us are very much new to it. Other than knowing what is SQL, we might not know what are the different functions that are involved in. So we'll go through the basics. We'll start from the basics, what is SQL, and before that we'll try to understand what is database actually. And furthermore, we're gonna get into DBMS and RDBMS, what are the differences, and we'll get into SQL eventually. Okay. And I hope everybody is able to see the screen. Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. So as I've said before, getting into directly what is SQL and all that stuff, we'll try to come with the basics. So let's try to understand what is a database actually. So database, we use databases in a day-to-day life. So everybody has your mobile phones in your hand, and we use it regularly. It has its own internal memory allocated, or you can have other SD card inserted. And those are also some databases. In those, in your mobile phones or in your memory cards or SD cards, you store different files, right? You store images, you store audio, you store video, you store documents. There are so many different kinds of things that you store.
Same content, Mali.
Yeah, so we have different kinds of things that we store in our memory of a mobile phone, and we have memory allocated in our systems as well. And what makes a database is, so as we say, we can store anything in our mobile phones or in our databases, but when we are storing it, if everything is randomly thrown away, so in some cases we have images and audios are randomly put together, so then it will be a hard time for us to retrieve if we want a particular type of a document. So what makes a database special is that it helps you to organize all the data that you have in a collective format. So you can keep all the audio files aside, you can keep all the video files aside, you can keep the documents aside. So you have a liberty to, sorry, is my voice audible? Are you getting any trouble with my audio?
No, it's clear.
No, it's background voice.
So I will do one thing. Can everybody mute yourself so that it will be clear, I think? Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. So nowadays, some people are asking that do you have an idea on SQL? So how we need to justify that we will be having, we have an idea on SQL. So could you please tell? Because as if I don't have any idea on SQL, so could you please explain how we should tell to interviewer?
See, idea on SQL, like for example, let's say you are applying for a business analyst position. Okay. Now, before you directly get into an interview, you would obviously go through the JD, the job description, which you first go through. So in the job description, if the company requires the candidate to be proficient or to have a knowledge on SQL, they would mention that okay, we want these people who have knowledge on SQL or some specific topics. Now, if they mention it and if they need a candidate who has who should possess the knowledge of SQL, then and learning the entire SQL or becoming a database admin, that is too much for us. Like we will not need it. So for a business analyst, there is a certain extent of SQL that we can learn and we can use it in our day-to-day project life as a BA. And learning more than that, I won't say it is unnecessary. I won't say it is not useful, but it is unnecessary. Like we will not have any kind of use. So there is a particular, starting to till some extent where we can easily learn and we can use that in our business analyst profession. And if we have this kind of knowledge, and even though we get into the interviews wherein SQL is needed, so they might ask you questions regarding those things. So, for example, for a business analyst, trying to retrieve some particular data is a major thing that might occur from time to time. So you must have to have a knowledge of how to write an SQL code which could help you to extract data from a database. Now, these kind of questions will be asked in an interview if SQL is mandatory in it. Like what are the different kinds of queries that you need to write in order to retrieve a specific kind of a data. So these kind of questions will be asked, and if you are aware about that, then you will be showing them your skills on the SQL and you'll be scoring marks on it. Okay. Is that
yeah. So my question is, if we don't know SQL, so how should we need to project ourselves, like stating that like we used to do in our project? So can you please give an example so that we can get an idea?
Yeah, so that is why we're trying to cope up with all the SQL sessions right now. Right? So in case after this also, if you do not have an idea and you got into an interview that in which you do not have any kind of SQL knowledge on yourself, then you can say that right now till my profession, I haven't got any kind of opportunity to use SQL in my profession. And I would obviously be very much open to learn SQL anytime if my business analyst profession requires it to be. You can just give them this answer. This will be a very good enough answer if you do not know any kind of knowledge about SQL.
Okay.
Yeah. So coming back to this databases. So these databases allow us to organize all the data that we have in a collective manner. Like we can segregate them, we can filter it. So that is where this databases helps us. And that is its purpose also. So we can have or we can store different kinds of data, but storing it randomly will be not that much of a convenience for us. If we want to take anything, if we want to have some kind of typical, like if you want to take some videos or if you want to take some photos out, then if we have random data just dumped into our storage or SD card or hard disk, then it will be a hard time for us to retrieve it. So the purpose of having this database is to make all that data organized and make it available so that we can access it anytime we want. So an example would be Naukri would be a very good example. I hope everybody has an idea of Naukri application, right? So it is an online job portal. Now, for example, if you have created a profile in Naukri, okay, let's say, so you're gonna put your name, you're gonna put your details on it, and you're gonna put your experience, and you're also gonna upload your resume. And once you've clearly done with your profile in Naukri, and when you started to apply for different kinds of jobs which you're interested in, and let's say you found a very good job and its salary package is also good and it is suiting your work experience. And when you click on apply for this job, what would happen normally? your details will be sent to that particular recruiter, right? And your resume will be sent, and they're going to go through all those things, and if they're interested, they're going to get in touch with you. Now this all happens because on a back end, on the database part, it is connected. Like, okay, when you hit on apply for this job button, your resume, your particular profile is linked or shared to that another person who has created that job vacancy. Now, if it is not an organized database, or if it is not a database, then some others details might get into it because it is not organized, right? We don't know whose information might be getting into it. So because it has an organized database, because everything is segregated, everything is very well divided and easy to access and very convenient forms, whenever you click on something, only your data is sent to that particular recruiter. So that is the purpose of having a database, collecting everything and arranging it into an organized manner. And in any kind of databases, 4 things are very fundamental: create, read, update, and delete. Creating databases, updating them, deleting them, and reading them are the 4 fundamental things that we can do. And now let's come to SQL. So what is this SQL? SQL is a full form for structured query language, and this SQL language or structured query language is used to retrieve specific information. Now, this is a language we use to perform on the databases to retrieve data which is already in there. As someone has already mentioned at the start, this particular SQL language is used to retrieve data, or it is used as a language to take out data from the databases.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. So is SQL structured query language or sequential query language?
It's a structured query language.
Okay. So in some of them, they say that it's a sequential query language.
Is that so? So let's check. I think last time when I have seen SQL, it was a structured query language. So yeah, I think it is structured query language. Yes. Okay. So the structured query language, it is a language which helps us to retrieve data from the databases, and we can't use this SQL like in your mobiles. You are using some kind of databases, right? You're using your SD cards, or you're having your internal memories. Now, there SQL is not used because SQL is only used in certain types of databases. So there are actually 2 different kinds of databases that are there, or database management systems. One is a DBMS, which is database management system, a regular one. And the second one is relational database management systems. And this SQL language is used to retrieve data from the relational database management systems. Okay. And let's try to understand the difference between these 2. What is a database management system and what is a relational database management system? Okay. Now, DBMS applications store data as a file. Now, in your mobile phones, if you want to store anything, or in your computers, if you want to store anything, you can store it as a file. So there we use database management systems. And in the RDMS, instead of storing the data as a file, they store it in a tabular format like we have in Excel. In DBMS, data is generally stored in either a hierarchical or a navigational form. Now, whenever we have any kind of photos arranged, or videos or audio arranged in our internal memory, or in our memory card, so we can change them, right? We can change them from A to Z or Z to A, or we can have it arranged in a date format, and we can navigate it. So we can arrange them in a different kinds of formats. But in RDBMS, the table have an identifier, like each and every table that is there, it has its own identifier called as a primary key. And the data values are stored in the form of tables. So instead of having them stored in a hierarchical or a navigational format, in the RDBMS, the data is stored in the form of tables, and every table has its own different unique or key. So we'll understand what that primary key is. You'll be able to get more clarification on it as we move on.
Sorry to interrupt. What is hierarchical and this thing? Like, can you explain a little more?
Yeah, hierarchical and navigation in the sense like, let's say you have 10 different photos, 5 were taken yesterday and 5 were taken today in your mobile phone. Okay. Now, in your memory card, if you go, it will be arranged already. Like if you go through the folder wherein all your photos are taken, yesterday's files will be at the bottom, and the recent files will be at the start. Okay. So now this is a kind of a navigational program. Like it is already navigated in a format wherein the recent photos will be coming upwards and the late photos will be coming down. So this is one way of storing. Or else you can have hierarchical form. Hierarchical in the sense which has from A to Z, which is starting from A and which is ending from Z. You can arrange them in that way. Or else from numbers you can arrange, and you can arrange from capital to small, or you can arrange them in different formats. So these kinds of arranging or storing the data or images is what we call as hierarchical form or a navigational form.
Thank you.
I think everybody had.
Hi, Abhilash is here. Can we just see real any examples on SQL key or DBMS? This is a DBMS and this is a RDMS. Where I can see that these are the types of storage, and I can see it really feel that data and visualize key. This is something SQL is working.
Of course, we're gonna get into the primary keys and what they are really after this one. So we'll take it one by one. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So coming to the differences here. So DBMS, you already know, it stores data as a file. It's a tabular form, and it deals with small data. So DBMS deals with very small data. And it only has a single user support. Now, in your mobile phones or in systems, mostly where DBMS are frequently used, you would have a limited set of data or very small data that can be used, and most of the time only a single user will be there. But for the RDBMS, there will be large set of data, huge set of data will be there, and it can be handled by multiple users. Okay. And examples for DBMS can be system files, wherein if you open your file manager on your mobile phone, you have different files, right, or different folders. Those are some examples of DBMS. Or you can have different XML sheets. And when you go to RDBMS, you have MySQLs, PostgreSQLs. These are the different softwares where you can apply RDBMS, or you can use SQL to connect with the databases. Now, when we are talking about RDBMS, we have talked about all the data that we try to store will be stored in a tabular format. Now, how that really happens, we're going to understand. Now, this is an example here. So every row is called as a record, and every column is called as a field, and a unique key identifies a table. So we'll understand it step by step. Now we have a sample table. An ID is there, and names, city, state, and PIN number. Okay. Now this is a RDBMS of a retail store. Let's say a store is there, and that is a mobile accessory or a digital accessory selling store. They sell cameras, mobile phones, iPhones, etc. Now we have a customer table. So they are storing the customer details. Everybody who comes in, their details will be stored. So we have 3 customers, Bill Smith, their name is Bill Smith, Steve, and Sean, and they are from different cities, states, and they have PIN numbers, right? And if you look at this, and we have a primary key here. So here you're looking at this one, key. So this primary key, and what is this primary key, and for which do we have to give? Now throughout this entire table, for each, we have this name, we have the city, we have state, and we have PIN. So in this PIN, do we have anything that is repetitive?
No.
No? Look at it carefully.
Yes.
Repetitive.
ID number 1 and 3 is repetitive.
Surname
ID number 1 and 3 is repetitive.
N is repetitive.
Correct.
Pin and state are repetitive. Pin and state and city are repetitive.
Correct.
So in this entire thing, which would you say, which column has nothing repeated? Can you tell me?
Name.
Name is not repeated.
So inside name there is no repetitive things happening.
With this
Only ID. Only ID.
ID.
Only the ID, correct?
Item ID.
Yes.
Yes. So in the customer table, we have ID, name, city, state, and PIN. And inside it, when we are talking about having a big retail store, there can be hundreds of people coming in daily, and something or the other might be similar with each and every customer. They may not know each other, but they can come from same cities, or they can come from same states, or they might have a same name sometimes. So all these things can combine a little bit. But the only thing that doesn't have a repetitor, that is always unique, is the ID. No matter how many people comes in, the ID will always be different for each and every customer. So in this stage, like if we have a column in which all the values inside that column are very much unique, there is no repetitive things that happen. So for that kind of column, we're gonna assign it as a primary key. Okay. So primary key is identified. Like this primary keys helps us to have a relationship built with other tables. Now, when we're talking about relationship database management systems, so the reason why we call it as a relationship database management system in this sense, we have different tables which store the data, and we can have these tables connected with each other. So in order to have these tables connected with each other, we use these primary keys as a help. Okay, with these primary keys, we're going to connect all the different kinds of tables. Okay. Now you understood this customer table. We have different things, and we give primary key to those columns in which there is no repetitive things are happening, and every value in that particular column is unique. And we can go to the item here. So in this item, we have item ID, we have name.
Hello.
And we have
Hello. Sorry to disturb. What's the difference between primary key and unique key?
No, there's no such thing as unique key. I'm talking about when we have a unique column, for that we give a primary key.
Okay, that means in unique column and only we apply the primary key.
Yes. So and in this entire table, we would have only one particular unique column in which there is no repetitives are happening. So for that column, we're going to assign a primary key.
Okay.
Yes. And the same thing happens in the item table here as well. So we have name, and we have descriptions, and we have given the primary key for the ID again, because the customers, we can sell the same things. We can sell 50 cameras or 100 cameras, and we can sell all the other things with the same description. But the item ID will always be different. Now we have a customer table and we have an item table. Both are very much different. And when we're trying to make a sales table wherein we can store all the sales details. Now in that case, what happens? Just look at here. So we have a sales ID as we have an ID for customer and item. And here these two are different. Now what's happening? So the item ID is taken from here, and the customer ID is taken from here. So that happened because of the use of a primary key. So these primary keys helped us to have a connection to the sales table here. And then we have quantity, and then we have price. So just look at this row. What is it saying? So sale number 1. Sale number 1, and then item ID. What has been sold? Which item has been sold? Now in this one means we go to the sales table again, and what is the one? Which is camera. And for the first sale, it was camera. And who was the customer who have bought this one? So it is the customer ID is 2. So who was the customer? Steve Smith. Now for the first sale, it was a camera, and it was bought by Steve Smith. And how many cameras did they bought? Quantity is 3. And what is the price? Right? So in this way, every column is arranged here. So all the data of the ID and customer They are connected from different tables to the sales table with the help of the primary keys. Okay.
Excuse me.
Yes, please.
Yeah. If a single table has two unique number of columns, so can we take two primary key in a table?
No, you can have to take only one.
Any one.
Yes.
Is it not possible only?
No, most of the time we would only have one unique table, but in some rare cases, as you mentioned, if we have two, two columns which have very unique values, then we would have to take only one particular primary key. We have to choose only one to give a primary key. We cannot give two.
Thank you.
How to assign a primary key then?
Yeah, that we'll understand when we are using the system. So this is all the theory part. We'll try to get more into this SQL, how these things happen. Then we'll get into the SQL, we'll try to do some coding there, and I'll tell you how to assign primary keys to the table. Now you understood this concept, what is a table and what is a primary key, and how this primary keys helps to attach or make a relationship with different tables.
Okay, quick question. Now for each of these tables, you have assigned a key, a primary key, but are these tables connected because of the primary key?
See, right now the customer table is a different one, and the item table is a different one. So these two are not connected. But the ID of the customer and the ID of the item are connected to the sales table with the help of the primary keys. Okay.
Okay.
So we need to only make sure. Hello? Yeah, we need to only make sure to select the unique ID, right, for the SQL.
Yeah. Yes. In order to connect different tables, we need to use the primary key to connect with it.
Yeah, but we need to identify, right, first. If we identify in a right way what is the unique key, then it will go in a correct manner.
Yes, so first when we have created a table, we first need to assign which one would be the unique column. Then for that column, we need to give the primary key.
Okay, for the sales table, do we create the sales table or do we just enter the unique key and the table is formed?
No, we have to create the tables. So every table that we need to create, and we have to again give the connections also. We have to give the relationships to the sales table.
Okay. So, sorry, might be a silly question, but as an BA, we need to create this table. We only need to give use this identification or a unique key.
See, we will not be creating anything as a BA. So, as we have gone through a couple of slides before, in our databases, we have creation, we have read, we have update, and we have delete. These four features will be there. But as a business analyst, we would only be using the read function, wherein a database is there and all the data is available in the databases. And we would only use a certain set of commands, very few commands we would use in order to just have that data pop up on the screen and we'll just go through it. Because we will not be doing all the stuff. That will be the work of a database admin. Okay. So we don't have to create any tables. We don't have to put anything, any data into it to insert. Nothing is going to.
Okay.
Sir, I have one question. Hello.
Yes, please.
This two column which is shown on sales, like item ID and customer ID, can be in any table, or it has to be in a specific table only where you can synchronize all these tables?
So we have a sales table made, right? So in that sales table, we are trying to figure out, like when we talk about sales, we need to have everything included, right? Who sold it, what is the customer details, and what is the item. So in order to have all those details, we just connected it.
But we can put in other tables like items. We can put these two column in item also instead of sales.
So which, what are you mentioning that you want to put in the item?
No, these two, where you want to connect this table, item and customer, you have put it in sales. Suppose
Yes.
if these two columns we include in item, not in sales, so there will be any difference in that?
See, this item ID here. So all the features that are there in the item ID, all the information, that information is this one only, which is already present in the item ID. So what is the use again to keep all those in the item ID? So if you want to have the customer ID put in, so here you are making a separate table, right? So you are making a customer table to have the details of a customer only. And you are making the item table to have the details of all the items that you're going to sell. So if we are having a separate tables to have an identification of what are the things that are happening, then separately adding customer ID into the item table would not be of any use. Right? So, but when we are talking about sales, we need a sale ID, we need what is the item that we have sold, we need a customer ID, which customer have we sold it to, and how many quantities and what is the price. So all the things are needed. That is why we have added only in the sales one.
Okay, got it.
Yes. And so these are the different kinds of commands. So these are different forms here. SQL commands are divided into 4 different languages: data definition language, data query language, data manipulation language, and data control language, wherein we have all these different commands that we can use. So mostly we would use a data query language, which is called as select. So as a BA, this one is a mostly used one that we would have. And data manipulation language, inserting, updating, deleting, merge, all those things. And data query language. So this grant and revoke are the different actions that can be performed by the database admin. Like if you want to access the database, if you want to have some data popped up on the screen. So first off, if you want to use the database, you would have to take the permission of the database admin. They have to ask you what is the reason that you would want to use the database from, what is the data that you want to take out from. And after stating your reason, they're going to grant you the access in order to use the database. And after your work is done, they're going to revoke the access. Okay. As a business analyst, we will be mostly using the select command, and we'll try to retrieve the data and we'll try to take out what is the data that is needed for us. Okay. Now, let's get into the software part here. Let's try to understand, how do we have to write this particular SQL language? How do we have to use these commands?
Excuse me. You told
Yes.
about the permission, right? DBA
Yes.
will give the permission to do such commands and use these commands and all. For data query language also, we need the permission of the DBA, like as a part of the what you call
DDL, DQL, DML, DCL. Okay. Data control language.
So here, the granting permission is not just for one particular thing. Like if you want to do any kind of action, they're gonna give you access. Sorry,
I'm asking about DQL only. For DQL purpose also we need the permission, or it is for unique for all?
See, we're gonna do only DQL. As a business analyst, we will only have the access, even though the DBA access gives the permission for us to use the database, we would only have the permission to do the DQL only. No matter how much you ask, they will not give the permission to DDL or DML or anything. As a BA, you will only be using the DQLs or select options most of the time. And once that is done, your permission will be revoked. So you will not be doing any other kind of actions.
So if you're a data analyst, what do you use? Do you use all 4? As a data analyst.
Data analyst also. See, any changes that inside the database has to happen, that has to happen by the database admin. No other person, even the CEO also, they couldn't change it, because databases are very much sensitive, and having some kind of unnecessary changes could lead to so many drastic situations. So all these databases will be delicately taken care of by the database admins, and anything changes that has to be made, the database admins will be doing those changes. And if any third party person, let it be a data analyst or a business analyst, want to have some access to some particular data, or wants to retrieve something in order to do something for a project. The database admins are gonna give the permission just to have a read. They will not have permissions to change anything. Whatever the existing data is there, you can go through the data, you can collect the data, but you cannot edit it and you cannot do any kind of stuff inside the databases. Okay. Yes. So when we are talking about the SQL language and how we're going to use the SQL language to retrieve data from the databases, there are different softwares that are already available. You have Microsoft SQL Server, which I'm currently using, and you have Oracle Server, you have MySQL. There are different engines are there, and I personally use this one. And for your practice, you can have any other softwares as well.
So which one is most preferable in the industry?
It depends. So mostly Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio and Oracle's server, both are mostly used. And other than that, MySQL is also there. So when you first start off this one, particularly Microsoft SQL, you're going to have this pop-up. Just click on the connect. So it is a server name, a server based on your system. It is open. So right now we do not have any kind of a real-time servers, right? So it creates its own server on whatever system that you're using. Just click on the connect. And if you are a database admin, for example, they would have all the company's databases connected to this one, and they can choose different databases to retrieve different types of data.
So is it an open?
Yes.
Can you please share the link so we can download this on our system?
Yeah, so this is an open one. It is not a paid one. You can just search for Microsoft SSMS or SQL Server Management Studio. It is available freely to download.
Can you please share it in link so that we can see and we can search?
See, you can just do it now.
Yeah.
So you have the first one coming up, download Microsoft SQL. You can just select the language and you can just download it. About Mac, I'm not sure. I'm not a Mac user. I think for system requirements, let's say, okay, it is a very basic system requirements are there. And for Mac, I think we have to check. But normally when you search for Microsoft SSMS, you would have the first link that will be coming up, or you can just directly download it. Okay.
A quick question: if we want to take a certification, which one would be better? Would it be Microsoft SQL or
in SQL? You're saying?
Yes, the basic one.
So if you want to do a certification, I think W3 schools would be a best option.
Which one? I'm sorry.
W3 schools.
Okay.
So
they offer certification also?
Yeah, they provide courses or material on different kinds of programming languages along with certifications.
Okay, thank you.
So is it okay?
So this is the interface that we would have when we open it for the first time. And on this side, you have databases, security, server objects, so on and so forth. And you can just scroll it down to open different kinds of databases. So these are the databases that I have previously created, and all the other databases will be coming up. And on this part, you're going to do the coding. So right now, there is no such thing that we can have a write on it. So you can go to this option, which is called as new query, and click on it.
Hi, I'm not able to download this. It's giving me a 3 option that SQL Server on Azure Azure at the edge and on premises. Which I need to select? Which one?
Yeah, so we'll do one thing. We'll just complete this one first, and after completion of this one, we'll discuss how to download this. Okay.
Okay, fine. Yeah, thank you.
So right now we have this sheet here wherein we can type our code. Now,
So
as
as
I've
a
said, yes.
so as business analyst, yeah, do we need to write code?
No, so that is what I am supposed to tell you guys here. So for a business analyst, you are not supposed to, do any kind of stuff, do coding or do create databases, put details on it. There's no such thing that are involved that you need to do. So when it comes to writing code, you need to understand the basic concept. As I've said, you need to have a basic core knowledge on how to retrieve data from already present databases. So you need to know those kinds of things. So those we'll be going through. And as an introduction, I would also tell you guys how to create databases, how to put information into the databases, and how to delete the information which is inside the tables, or how to delete the database itself. So I'm going to go through all the basic stuff, but that is not much of a need for a business analyst. So this, as there is an SQL introduction, I would like to go through all this. But for a BA, only the reading part, so wherein you can use a certain bit of code in order to extract whatever that is already present in the databases, would be more than enough. Okay, is that clear?
Yes.
A quick question: does a BA retrieve data for the purposes of analyzing the data, or for what purpose does he or she?
Most of the time, we retrieve data to understand the client's concerns. Like if you're trying to do any kind of project, so whatever the data that is already there, which could give us an insight of improving our requirements or improving our project deliverable, we try to retrieve data on those situations.
So basically, a stakeholder analysis, maybe.
Stakeholder analysis is entirely different. We use stakeholder analysis to identify which stakeholders do we have to do the requirement gathering for. That is entirely different.
Okay.
So we try to retrieve this data for the purposes of having, improving the project delivery, or trying to understand a bit more about the application that we're supposed to build, and overall, a good project for project delivery purposes, we'll try to retrieve the data.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yes. So here, when you open this one, when you open this Microsoft SQL, so on this side you have this master, which is scroll it down, this master, model, MSDB, and this empty. So these four are already given with the system, and you don't have to do any kind of changes because they are already inbuilt. So there is no need of doing any changes for that. And I'll do one thing, I'll just try to delete. So you can see what is the best thing with these kind of softwares is that you can do coding to create or delete databases, or else you can do them randomly or very easily using this system's functionalities as well. Now there is one database here called Sql. Now if I want to delete it, I can just right click on this one and I can just delete it. Done. So with this, I have deleted an entire database. Now I'll just refresh it and it's gone. So that is an easy way. And if you want to create a database, for example, so what is the code that you need to write? You can just write create, and you can just write database and just give the name for the database. And one thing you need to keep in mind while you're writing any kind of code is this SQL code is not case sensitive. Case sensitive in the sense, if you're familiar with programming languages, some programming languages, either you need to write them in a shorter alphabet formats, or else you need to write everything in a large alphabet format. You can't just interchange, or you can't just interchangeably use it. So that is what we call as case sensitive. If you in a case sensitive languages, this is different and this is different. They're not both the same. But in SQL, they're both the same. There is no such thing like this. So that is why we can just randomly write any, in any way. So we are, this create is a keyword here, create database, and we're giving the name. What is the database that we're creating? Okay. Now, in order to run this one, so there is a button here called execute. Just click on it. Right? It shows command successful, command completed successful. Now, to see whether this one really execute or this really created a database or not, you can go here, drop it down. You can just refresh it, and you have the database created. Right? Now, this is a way to create a database, and we have seen how to delete a database also. So now let's try to see how to delete a database using the code. So let's try to create a random database here. And when we have, now we have 2 lines of code, right? Now, if you want to execute it, if you click on this one, you will get an error. See, why did we get an error? Because when we try to execute something, it will go from the first point and it will reach the last point. Now, the first point is already done because it is already created a database. Now, when we try to click on execute, it will run through this and it will say that, okay, this already exists. You can see it already exists and it stops over there. So to not happen this one, to do not repeat this one, what we do is we select what we want to execute and we click on it. Okay. Yeah. So that happens. And now when we want to delete any kind of databases, what we do is we have a function called drop database and we write its name. So we can select it and we select this one and execute. The command completed successfully. Now this cool V2 should be disabled. School video is gone. Now we have created a database and now we know how to delete a database as well. So these are the basic things of creating and deleting. And now as we've already created, yes.
If we accidentally drop one database, can we revoke that again? Is it possible in SQL?
Revoking is possible, not for the databases, but when we have deleted any kind of thing inside a table, we can use that one time. So most of the time in databases, when we delete something, let it be an entire database or let it be information that is there in a table, most of the time we cannot revoke it. So that is why, as I've said, it is very sensitive. So for the databases, we will not have that kind of an option to revoke anything if the database is entirely gone. But while we are trying to change or revoke or delete anything inside the tables, we have an option called rollback, which would help us to, it works like a Control Z, but just for once. We can undo the change that we have done.
Okay.
But it only works once. So now we have created and deleted databases. Now let's try to create some tables here. So what is the code that we have to write for creating a table? So it is a very simple. Create table and we'll give a table name here. That could be, let's say in a school, it could be students. Right. So for the students, we can have, now when we think about this scenario, so in a school, while we are creating a table for students to store all the details of a student, what are the things that we would have to store basically?
The roll number, name.
So roll number will be given later, right? So once the student details are entered, then later on we're going to give a roll number. Okay. So apart from roll number, any other things?
And ID.
ID, yeah. ID and roll number both are same almost.
Marks.
Maybe admission number.
Admission number or something. So it also
Marks.
So let's say we would have students' first name and their last name and their date of birth and their enrollment date. These four are the basic things that we try to. Sorry, I'm getting a disturbance. Can you turn off your mic? Great. So while we are trying to enter any kind of student details, or we try to save student details for the first time, we would have their last name and we would have their first name, and we would have their date of birth, and we'd also have to enter their enrollment date. So on which date they have enrolled onto the school. And obviously we would also keep some ID. For each and every student, we can have hundreds or thousands of students. So to mark them up, we would have a normal ID. Okay. Now let's try to put in all those things here. So first off, we're going to give the column name, which is, let's try to put it as ID. The ID is the column name, and int. So int is, in sense, it is a data type. Like what is the value that we're going to put in that particular table, and each and every value that we put in has a different data type to represent. Now in an ID, what is the value that we put? We put numbers. So to represent numbers, we would have integer or int as a data type. And when we're talking about characters that we put in, or alphabets in the first name and last name, so there we have different data types also. For the ID, we have int, and we are assigning the primary key here, because we know most of the time IDs are very unique in value and they will not have any kind of repetitiveness. So that is why we are assigning the primary key. After the primary key, we are showing not null. Not null in the sense there is no blank value or a null value in any of the column. So that we are representing. And we have identity 1, 1. What is this identity 1, 1? Now, if you go through this table here, so we have 1, 2, 3, right? So we have started this table with number 1, and after that, each and every number is incrementing. So after 1 it comes 2, then it comes 3. So in order to have that structure followed, we are given this 1, 1. It says the table should start its numbering with the value 1, and every time a new entry is entered, it should increment with a +1 value. Now if we have 2, 2 here, for example, so if we have 2, 2, the table will start with the number 2, and the numbering will be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and so on. So that is why we have to give 1, 1. Now all this to have to create one particular create the ID column, wherein we have given the name of that column as an ID, and we have its data type, and we have declared it as a primary key, and we have told that it should not have any kind of null values, and we have also given the identity for it, how the serial numbers or the ID numbers has to progress. And after that is done. Yes, please.
Yeah, actually we have given this ID as a primary key, then automatically it will not null only. No, primary key means we can't enter null value.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. Great point. And this not null, we are just trying to get familiarized with all the things that we do in the SQL. What are the different options that we can use? So on the next table we're supposed to create, we will be not using the not null. I'm just inserting it here because we have that particular option. So we can use this not null in other columns that we can create also.
One more doubt.
Okay.
Like
Yes.
given identity 1 1, so
Yes.
we can't enter primary key like manually. Like we are editing or we are putting some value to the table in a row in a row. So here for ID we do and unable to enter the data manually as you are telling because of identity, right? 1, 2, 3 automatically it will take the values.
Whatever value that you enter manually, it will take it as that identity. Like for every value that you enter, it will give an ID for it automatically.
No, I can't get you because identity means you told 1, 2, 3 automatically it will take from 1 to onwards, 1, 2, 3 onwards. So
Yes,
if we want to enter a table, row in the table students, so we no need to enter ID value as this karke.
Yes, you don't need to enter anything. ID will be automatically going. You will just need to enter all the other details.
If we put a ID value, then what will happen? It will show an error.
Yes, obviously, because an ID is already there inside it, right?
Okay, the value is already given by creating the table.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
So these are the details when we try to create a column for the ID. And if you're trying to create the first name and last name, for example. So we have first name. First name and yes. Sorry, your voice is not clear. Can you repeat that?
As of now, are you extracting the data?
No, I'm not extracting anything. I'm trying to create data here. So as I've said, we'll try to go through all the topics, even though that we do not need much of all these things. We would only be using the, the data extraction most of the time, or data reading. But we'll try to go through all the basic things so that we would have a basic idea of all the commands that we could use in SQL. Okay.
But the basic need is like the basic job of business analyst is to extract the data, right?
Yeah, just to take out the data which is already there and just to read it. So right now we do not have that much of a data to use the different commands to extract the data, right? So first we are trying to create some data here. Okay.
Okay. So after creating, you will be extracting, right?
Yes. Right.
Okay.
Can we use alphanumerical ID? And if we yes, then what would be the identity for alphanumerical ID?
Sure. See, when we're trying to alphanumerical ID, you're saying?
Yes,
Only,
right.
For the ID, we would have only numericals. We will not have alphanumerical IDs. But when we try to put in the details, let's say for the name or any other different columns, if you want to enter alphanumerical values, then we would have the data types for them. But for the ID itself, we cannot have alphanumerical IDs.
Okay.
So for the first name here, we can have either character as a data type, and you have variable character as a data type, and you have numerical, variable, and character as a data type. So we have 3 different data types just to enter a name or just to enter anything in an alphabetical format. Okay. So I tend to use nvarchar most of the time. So you can just have just this character would be enough if you're trying to enter just the alphabetical inputs. Okay, so I would like to use this one. So nvarchar, and after that you can give a limit for how many alphabetical values that you can enter. So first name shouldn't exceed more than 50 alphabetical values, and it should not be null. Okay, so this is first. And you can write same for the last name also.
So is it something like constraints, limitations?
Yes, correct. So you cannot have any student's name exceeding more than 50 alphabetical letters. That is what we say.
Okay.
and we have a date of birth. So date of birth has a different set, like, so we have years, we have months, and we have dates. So to determine those things, we have date data type, or else we have date type. So in previous versions of all the Microsoft servers or Oracle servers, date time is mostly used. And right now, recently, this date has come in. So if you are using a new system, using date would be fine. And if you are using a old system, for example, then you can have the date time variable and not null.
Yeah.
So
When would the
sorry?
When would only null would be used? You are writing not null, right? So when would null is used?
So null is if you do not have a not null option inside it, then it will automatically have the option to leave it as blank. Now, if we have the enroll date, for example, so enroll date also we're going to put it in a date time format, right? So we use the date time and we are leaving it. We are not attaching not null. So in this way, we are saying that it can be left blank because let's say students came in to go through the schools, how the school's infrastructure is. So all those things. So everybody, every person who comes to the school couldn't be enrolled. Right? So we can take their first name, their last name, we can take their date of birth. So every detail we take, but we can only write the enrollment date and only after they have joined the school. So we can leave this enrollment.
So null is something not sure.
I think
right?
last name can be null also. In some cases, there is no last name.
Last name can be your, whatever surname could be, right? So let's say somebody name is Raj, so just R-A-G.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes Raj only.
So whatever. So you can have two names, first name or last name or surname, whatever you can name it, and date of birth. And enrollment date, we are not keeping the not null, so we can leave it as blank. So yes.
So null is something like which is not sure, right?
Yeah, so null in the sense, when it comes to not null, we are saying that, just give me a second. Yes. So actually this null and not null, where do we use it most of the time is when we have to have some kind of details filled. We cannot leave those columns with a blank. We put this not null condition. So this not null condition helps us to emphasize that we should not leave this particular columns as a blank. So when we are not using a not null, we're saying that we can have these particular columns blank. So that is a difference.
So which is not mandatory, not mandatory.
The information which may not be mandatory, we can just leave it. We cannot have the not. So that is fine.
Okay, which is not useful. Okay.
Yes.
And we have various date formats, right? Whether we need to give any specification on the DOB column we create.
So date of birth, as I've said, there is a date and date time. Two types of data types are there to represent any date insertions. And
no, I'm referring to the formats which we use. Say, for example, DD, MM, YY, and in some formats we use MM, DD, YY as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this SQL, you have only one kind of format that you can use, which is YY, MM, DD. Okay. So you have year, month, and date. So this is the only format that is available. And this way of writing, you can see I have inserted two lines here and I have written something and it shows in a green line. So this is what we call as a comment. So this comment, we can just write anywhere in the code to have a more detailed explanation of each any line that you do not understand. And while we are running the code, it will not have any effect on the code. Okay, so this is what we call as comments. So right now, for creating a student table, we have created ID and we have created first name, last name, date of birth, and enroll date. Now we'll have to execute this one. Okay. Now execute, you can select all this. Now if you try to execute it, it will give us an error. Why? Because no, so inside the table it is fine because we are not, we are creating a table and inside the table we are doing all this. That is fine. The error that I'm telling about is, just look at this one. So right now we are doing all this in the master database. So what is the database that we are supposed to do this in? School, right? So if you try to execute it, it will give us an error because this master database, it is not a database that we have created to do some changes. It is a systems or the applications database that we shouldn't do any kind of changes to. So you can just scroll this one down and you will have all the databases that you have created. You can click on school, right? And you can now execute it. But sometimes, let's say you may forget it. So in that situations, just in case, you can have this one, this command, use school. So use this in the sense, and now if you try to execute everything, even though you have master here, even though you have any other databases, now if you try to copy all, if you try to select all and execute, it will execute perfectly. Because you are doing that in the school database. Got it? Now
So
a table is created.
So I think not null is common.
Yes.
Okay.
So right now we have created a table successfully. Now let's try to view that table. Okay, how can we view it? Now here we are trying to retrieve the data. So viewing in the sense, first you'll try to write the command select star from the table name that you need to write. Students. Select star in the sense everything you can see. If you click on the star, you can see all the columns that are inside that one: ID, first name, last name, date of birth, and enroll date. Star in the sense everything that is included inside the table here, table called students. Now select these things and execute this. See, ID is there, first name, last name, date of birth, and enrolled. So right now we haven't inserted any kind of information. We just created a table and we are having the table layout. So at this point, everything's clear?
Yeah, I think the last one is what business analyst collect from students.
Yes. Most of the time, these are the things that we would do. The selecting, and we'll try to, and there are different commands to have only the first name and last name selected and only the date of birth selected. There are different things also, we'll get into it. Okay. And so right now we have completed a students table. Now in a school, we will not only have a students table, but we will also have another table for courses, right? So we would have courses, and I've also already made a particular code for that. So we have create a table called courses, and for that we have course ID, which we use integer as a data type, primary key, and I haven't involved not null here. So as you mentioned, so the not null is not required when it is a primary key. Identity, and the column name is title, not null, number of credits for a course, and it can be null. So some courses may have credits and some courses may not. And course code.
Why the first one not null is included? Why it is null? First row, course ID into primary key. Can you please explain?
This one? So I just given it as an example, like till this point you have not getting introduced to the not null, right? So I've just written it as an example. So you can just delete it also. Not null is not required, as I've said. Not null is not required when you are doing a primary key.
No, this, yeah, I mean, I'm talking about courses. Courses, not null is not required in the first line, right? Yes.
In here you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, so it has a primary key, right? So there is no need of mentioning a not null.
Okay.
So primary key in the sense, what is a primary key? All the values in the primary key should be unique and should not be repetitive, and it should not have any kind of null blocks. When it satisfied all this, it becomes a unique one and it will be eligible to have a primary key. So if it has a null value, then we couldn't give a primary key. But when we have already assigned it as a primary key, we are stating that it doesn't have any kind of null values.
Okay. The primary key itself indicates that it has not null value.
Yeah. When we give any primary key to a column, it indicates that it doesn't have any kind of null values.
Okay. So we can even include not null also, no? As
Yeah, you can include, but it doesn't make any difference. So you can write not null, but it doesn't make any difference even if you do it or not.
Okay, fine.
And course code, it can be written in alphanumerics here. So someone has mentioned about ID being an alphanumeric. You cannot have an ID being an alphanumerical one, but we can have all the other entries that are entered by us. So ID is an automatic function which will go on as we enter anything. But if we enter any kind of alphanumerical values, we can have that in this way. So course codes, let's say if it is a SQL course, so the course code could be SQ001. So it can be in that format.
Okay, with respect to the number of credits column, okay, if we are having a value up to 50, okay, a number of credits will be 0 to 50, then how do we mention the maximum number is 50?
Yeah, you can mention it. So as we have written for nvarchar and as we have written here, we can have a mentioning here, we can have 50 or 20 or 100, whatever that you can say.
So we can say or not say it.
Yeah, so if you do not say, it will not have kind of a maximum number. But if you say it, it has a limit.
Okay. If you are not sure, it's better to leave blank.
Yeah, so normally we would have those things clarified. Okay, because most of the time a number of credits would be less than 6 or 7 mostly. 6 or 7 in the sense it will be one digit number. It will be from number 1 to number 6, right? So every credits would be around 1.
Yeah. No, one can't say right number of credits. It can be 50 also. It can be 20 also.
Yeah, it can be. So as you wish.
So depending on data.
Actually, you are referring to the number of characters we input, right? I am referring to the maximum value which we can give. If we give 1, but we have, if we give 1 in the bracket, we will be having a maximum value up to 9. But the value which we have is maximum value as 6.
I understand. So if we talk about integers, so integers, a maximum value of an integer would be around 32,000 something. Yes. So the maximum value of an integer could be minus 31,002 plus 32,000. It is somewhere around it. So for values more than that, we have a long int, or there are different kinds of integers also inside it. That gets us more into the coding part.
So that we won't consider as a business analyst.
Yeah, so we will not do this actually. So all the things that I'm currently telling you, as a BA, we will not do it at all. Yeah, so we mostly use the SQL language to retrieve data. So in order to use all those retrieving commands, we are now creating a small database here in order to use those different retrieve commands. Okay, now let's try to execute this one also. Execute. So incorrect syntax where I have done null.
Bracket is missing at the end.
Acha, okay. Now it's done. So we have this one. Let's try to copy it, and let's try to do it again here. So we have select from students, and we can also select from courses. So we have two different tables which we have created. We can select both these tables and we can execute it. And we have on the above we have students table, and below we have courses table. So we have created two different tables here. And now let's try to insert the data inside. Now to insert the data, what we do is we have different command called insert into the table name is students. Insert into the students and mention what are the column names that you have. So what are the column names that we have into the inside the students table here? We have first name, last name, date of birth, and enroll date. So it'll give us a pop-up also. First name, comma, last name, comma, enrollment date. Right. So only these three we had: first name, last name, enrollment date, and date of birth. So we had these four things. And now we need to insert values in it. Now, when we're trying to insert any kind of values, we have first name, last name, date of birth, and enroll date. So we need to enter the values in this particular format only. Okay. So first name, let's say, so whenever you're entering something inside the values, you have to put that in a single quotations. Let's say we have Steve is the first name, Smith is the last name, and we have some random date of birth, and we have some, let's say, a random enrollment date. So this is one way. You can have one value here, and you can come up with different kinds of values. I just had it up stored here. So I'll just try to put it here. Okay. So I have all these different values that I have inserted. So we have first name, last name, date of birth, and I have put some enrollment dates as null because we have an option to keep them as null. And we can execute this one. We can just copy this, execute this, and you can see 5 rows are affected. Now, if you try to select the table there, let's say select a star from students table. Now, if you try to execute this one, execute. So we have the table popped up. So we have ID, which is automatically generated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we have first name, we have last name, and we have date of births, and we have enrollment dates. Now, as we have used a date type for the enrollment data and date of birth, after the date of birth, you also have some kind of time listed down. So if you do not want it, you can just remove the date time and you can just keep it as date. Okay. So this is the students table and all the information we put in the students table. And what happens is most of the time the database people also, they will not enter all this. Like if we have an application built, so they're going to leave it as blank. They're going to make, there are different commands for the user. Like they're going to keep this SQL or the database as a backend part, and they let the user. Now, if you are a teacher and you try to register a student, there will be an application for you in which you're going to enter the patient's first, the student's first name and last name and the details. And once you save it, it will be saved into this particular table. And as how many entrances have been happening, that many lists will be going down into this tables. So this way you can do it, or else you can, another easy way of putting data into the different tables here is you can go to your particular database, which is school, and in here you can expand the tables, and you can just right click on the table that you want to put some data on and go to the edit top 200 rows. Now, if you do that, you'll have this option: course ID, title, number of credits, and course code. So ID, it will automatically generate. So you can give a random title for your course. Let's say SQL is one thing, and we have number of credits, let's say 5, and course code SQ001. So this is one thing. And we can have, let's say Java is there, and 4 and J002. It can be one thing. And we can have business analysis. We can have it as 5, and let's say BA0003.
So, quick question on this. So instead of using the insert command, we are directly inserting the data in the table, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and this data will be saved in the table.
Yes, correct. This is one way of entering data using the system here, using the application.
So if we have a lot of data, like maybe 500 students and their details, how do we insert the data using this method?
Yeah. So normally database admins, they will not insert it. Like, let's say that they have this option. Let's say the school people have made an entire list of all the students who have enrolled into an Excel sheet or any other file. So normally they would have an option to insert that Excel sheet, and they can convert that Excel sheet into the table.
Okay.
So they'll have the options instead of manually putting all the details there.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Sorry?
Thank you.
Yes. So we have entered 5 different sections here, and you can just click on Control S and it will be saved. Just remove this. And now what is the command to view the courses table? Select
star from courses.
Courses. Now let's select this one and execute. So we have all the details popped up. So we have titles, we have number of credits, and we have a code for each and every title here. And now let's talk about some of the things that we would use as a BA. Okay. Now we know the select option here. So by using the select option, we can have different kinds of data popped up on the screen, and we can use the select option to have different kinds of tables coming up. And what are the other things that we can do using this one is we can remove that, or we can use some kind of changes at the star point. What I'm saying is, instead of keeping it as a star, let's say select first name, select first name as first name, comma, last name, from students. Now if I try to select this, see, I just had the first name and last name coming up. So you can write it in this way, first name, and what I did is, now this is the name that we have given. So if we try to do the students here, if you see the first name and last name, we do not have any kind of spaces. So it was just a random name that we have given. Now, in order to retrieve, in order to give a a temporary good name, so we have just given the space. We have written it very nicely, and we have selected it, and those things popped up as the column names there. And we are viewing all the information. Now that is a temporary action. Now once we select the students, it will stay the same one. So it will stay the same. So just for viewing it in a convenient manner, we use this one. Now here the as function is what we call as alias. Alias in the sense we are temporarily giving a random or a temporary name, different name to view a particular information. So with this, we've only viewed first name and last name out of all the things in the students table. Okay, and now there is one more trick for it. So if you want to view first name and last name in the same column, for example, you can have first name plus you can have a last name and you can name it as full name. Now you are giving a alias here. You are making that first name, you are taking that first name and you are taking the last name, you are combining it and you are giving the column name as a full name here from the students.
Yeah, so in most of the companies, they would spend less time in executing queries by using SQL, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah, so we will use a very less to no time spending all this SQL. It is very rare that we try to use this SQL language and we try to retrieve data.
Okay. So until and unless it is very important to do it.
Yes.
In most of the
yes. So we have this way of viewing. So all these different select commands, we're trying to use different kinds of things to view the data in a more convenient manner. Okay. Now this is one thing we can use the select information from. And we also have other command called update. So where do we use update? I'll show you. Now let's try to execute this one. Select is there. We'll use this. And now. So in this, you can see that some of the enrollment dates are null, right? Now let's try to fill in all the enrollment dates which are null. So for that we can use update students. Now, if you observe this command, update students. So we are updating the students table and we are trying to set the enroll date to this particular given date. And we are having the condition here. And when enroll date is null, so we are trying to put the enroll date to this one where enroll date is equals to null. Now let's try to execute this. Achha, it was not where, it is. Three rows are affected. Now let's select this one and see all those are fulfilled again. So update students. So we are updating the students table and we are trying to set the enroll date to this one. where enroll date is null, where all the null options are there, every null option will be filled with this date. So that is what we use for the update.
So yeah, so for every enroll date is filled with that option only, 2026-30.
Not for every enroll date, for everything which is null. So that is where this condition is important. Where condition is very important. Now, if you do not give the where condition and you just execute only this one, all the enrollment dates will be turned to this one. So we are giving this condition to make all the enroll dates into this one where it is only null previously.
Whatever it is null, that value would be executed.
Yes.
Suppose it is
Now,
for a particular student.
Yes, we can also do that. Where you can see, let's say that we will try to change this one. Let's make it 2019 here, 2019, and let's say it is 10, and it is 01. 01, where let's say students, from where they're not the students, where first name. Let's say the student's first name is equals to some, just give me a, let's say Akshay is there here. So AKSHAY. So update student set enrollment date to this one, where first name is equals to Akshay. Right. Now, if we try to execute this, so one row is affected, and we can select. See, Akshay, it has become 2019. So this where condition is very much important. Okay, is this clear? So these are the basic, select commands, or these are the basic data retrieving commands. So most of the time we use this select, and we use different kinds of things that we need to retrieve from the select, using the select commands inside the tables, and we'll try to retrieve all the different data.
So the main job is to retrieve only.
Yes. So the main job is to just all the data will be there. All the key connections and everything. All the data, everything will be done by the database admin. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is just use these different commands, and using these commands, you just retrieve the different data. Okay.
What is the main? So is it mandatory to execute? I mean, what is the purpose behind executing? To know the data? Or?
Yeah, to execute. See, all the. Let's try to delete this one. This one is not there, and let's say this one is not there. Now we have students name. Now this is the entire thing that we have. So you do not have any kind of code here. You are using this one, and now you want to retrieve the students' data. You want to have the students' data. So for that, you will write this code, and you will execute. After executing, you're gonna get the different database here. So right now, as I have all the access, I can do all the changes here. But when you use this as a business analyst, and when the database admin gives you the access to it, you cannot do much of the changes here other than using the select options and retrieving specific information. So this execute option is used to run the code, whether you are right now you're selecting or you want to have some data popped up. So if you run the code and execute, it gives us that.
So with this we can.
Yes.
So with the help of this execution, we can create use cases, user stories with this type of data. I
didn't understand your point about the user stories. What was it?
No, actually, what does this data will do?
Yeah, so that is what. So for a business analyst, we use this SQL language, and we use this particular select commands to retrieve the data. And the purpose of we retrieving the data is either to have to go through the data to get more information regarding the project, or to improve the project outcome. Anything it might be. We were very rarely in any kind of project we get into. It is very rare that a business analyst would have to get some information inside the database. But in some scenarios, in some rare scenarios where it could happen, in which we have to get some data or we have to understand how the data is there actually, so that we can deliver the project outcomes in a more efficient manner. So in order to tackle those situations, we are trying to understanding what are the basic things that a BA would need to know when it comes to the database and SQL.
Okay. What I'm telling is these data could be also used in different ways, like in use stories or anything in creating useful diagrams or activities.
Yeah, so where those we will not be used. We are just using this commands and we are just trying to go through this data. It can be anything. We can have, we just go through it just because of improving the data efficiency or improving the output that we can get, or we can improve it with the requirements by looking at these different data which is already present. It can be anything.
So we can one can extract requirements from stakeholders by using this data. It could use.
No, see, extracting requirements from the data, it can, extracting requirements from the stakeholders, it is very different. So that has nothing to do with the data. So right now, in a project, normally, or let's say that not only in a project, a BS role would also be involved in providing different kinds of solutions for your own IT problems. Now, if your IT problem has got into some kind of a problem here, and your IT company has a problem, and you as a business analyst will be a part of delivering a valuable solution in order to clear that problem. So in order to identify what the problem is, if you are supposed to retrieve some data to understand the problem, and you need to understand where some things are going on, you would be in that situations, you would have to go through this databases, you would have to have the access to go through the data, and you will be able to understand something, and it might help you to deliver a perfect solution for your company. So that could be.
So it would something like root cause analysis. I mean, what to do into deep. I mean, going into deep for a solution.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So these are the basic. Yes.
May I know the command to give for the search of last name which starts with K alone?
Sure, you can do that. I'll just see. We have this one, right? So we have this select from students. Where what was the condition that you have told?
Last name which starts with K.
So where last name is equals to K. You can just select. So do we have anybody's last name starts with K or something?
Yes, there. It gives the full condition, right? If you give Kumar, then only it will select. When we want to start with,
something like this. Yes. So we have these things also. So we use these symbols wherein we are stating that where last name in any last name, if the word K is there, then that name should pop out. That is this one. So execute. Oh, was it this one or was it any other symbol? Let me check.
Like in place of equal.
Sorry?
We have to use like. Like is a keyword for fetching data.
Yes. Like is there, but this one is also that this have used a couple of times. Like is kind of like a similar.
Sorry, I think you have given percentage before K. You have to give K after percentage. Sorry, vice versa.
Sorry, what was
you
that?
have given percentage and then K, right? I think we need to give K and then percentage.
Okay. So
like we have, this is correct, like we have to write k after, we have to write k then percentage, but for equals to it will not work, like will work.
Okay, so just let me just go through it again. So this was a very good one.
I think this kind of command will help us to do with this search, and the number starts with or the date of birth which starts from one particular date to end date
Yes,
has
of course.
some value.
Can we try like?
Select from students where
Last name like k person.
I'll try to do this. Last name like
k percentage code. No, don't put a percentage before k. Yeah, that's correct.
What is the use of percentage?
So can you please turn off the mic? Yes, now it's working. So it was live. So select a star from students, select everyone from the students where last name involves K.
Yeah, so what is the percentage? So why we need
Sorry, what is this?
percentage? So in order
So
to
percentage in the sense, we are stating that select everyone from the students whose last name starts with K, and after that, whatever that is there, it is not of a concern. So if it is starting from K, then give anything which is starting from K, and after that, whatever that is there, we are not, we don't want anything. And if we have the percentile on this side, on the left side, we're saying that it can be anything, but it should end with K. So like that. And if we have a percentage sign from both sides, then we're saying that if anybody's last name has the word K, then give their name. So that is what these percentages are used for. And we can also do one thing like deletion is not our part, but let's try to do the deletion as well. So we have the students table, and
Can we have the comment for the date range also?
Comment for
date range. Say for example, DOB from specific time to specific time.
Do you want to change the date of birth?
Not to change. Say for example, you have some values, right? 1998. Say for example, we are searching a student who has the date of birth from 6th month to 7th month.
So we can't have particularly searching for a 6 months or 7 month. I don't think that feature will be there, but we can search in the form of the entire date, or let's say we have. So let's try this one. So DOB, and let's say we have. Let's say if this works out. So let's keep it in this way. So let's try to keep it 06. I think it only works for the year. Yes, suppose it is. And the date time formats also, we only have two different date time formats. Sorry, one date time format and two different variables for it. We can use either date or date time, but the output will be in a same way only. So in this manner only we would get it. But the difference between a date and a date time variable is that in a date time variable, we would also have this time coming up, the time where it is currently recorded. So those are the things, and these are some of the basic things as we have done. Try to have two different columns merged and coming up, and try to search for things which have a specific things inside it, and trying to search for things or trying to update anything. So these are the basic things that we would have to know of as a business analyst, and all the other things also we have learned. Some extra things like creating and deleting a databases and putting information inside it and all that stuff. And so these are the basic ones. So I hope nobody has any kind of doubts or whatever that has gone through till this point.
Excuse me.
Yes, please.
How can we view the constant and all the column name of the table of a particular table, like all column name with the constants and the data type what we have given to the table?
So that we can't do. Like if you want to view if you are a person you are a business analyst, for example, if you want to view something, you can only view whatever that is there inside the table. Now, if you are a database admin though, if you want to view how, what is the things that we have given, what are the different kinds of database, what are the data types that you have given, you will have the access to the entire code. You can go through it, or else you can go to the tables. You can right click on it. You can just click on edit, or not the edit. You can just go to select top 1000 rows. Here you can see first name, last name, everything will be going on. So all those privileges will be there for the database admin. We will not have all those things.
We can't view any command is there, like how to see that one?
No, sir. No, not there. So as I mentioned before, like somebody has asked about the different kinds of certifications that we could get. Then as I've said, you can go to W3 School online web tutorials. So in this, they're going to provide you with different kinds of materials. You see HTML, CSS, Java, Python is there, SQL is there, and you can learn different languages in it. So it has all the things here. You have intro, syntax, where what are the things that you can do. You can go through all the different things, and if you're trying to get into more of a SQL, get more into SQL, and you can get certified here. You can just, once everything is done, they're going to give you a test, and after that is done, you will be certified with W3 schools, and you will get the certification. So we have different kinds of coding languages, and you can learn from them.
Is that a paid one or free one?
Learning is free. Certification you have to pay.
And what is that? How much?
That we have to see. Let's get started.
But as a business analyst, the only part.
No, I don't think the certifications are much important when we're considering business analyst role. So only having a basic knowledge of using some kind of a commands would be very much helpful for us.
So if you want to choose the career as a SQL, SQL software,
admin, yes,
so
then. See, for the SQL, it is $95. If you want to complete the SQL and get a certification from the W3
No, I think
schools.
one or two interviews I got same thing, that there is more knowledge required for SQL, and they were asking some commands also, like there was some technical round also, like literally they were asking like some deep debugging they were doing in SQL only. I have basic knowledge, but and that I got.
Yeah. So yeah, one thing guys you need to be aware of, like everybody here wants to become a business analyst, and before you go for any kind of interview, and make sure that you have gone through the job description very thoroughly, because we know business analytics is there, wherein involvement of Python, SQL, Power BI, Tableau is very much there. Business analytics is a profession wherein you take the data, you put that into the analytical softwares, and you'll try to have the dashboards coming up, and you'll try to figure out what are the things that we could do next with our products. That is business analytics, and you already know what business analysis is, what we do. And when a job description is given out for business analytics and for the business analysis, the same name will be mentioned. We are having an opening for business analyst. Unless you go through the job description, what they are really expecting from the candidate, you will not have an idea. Now, if you haven't gone through the job description and you say that, okay, there is an opening for business analyst profession, and you just get into that, they might ask you all the different kinds of questions that you may not even heard of. So make sure that whenever you are in front of a business analyst job description, you just go through that. Are they mentioning the business, the requirement engineering, stakeholder, all the things that we have learned of? Is that the business analysis role? Or are they mentioning about R, Python, Power BI, Tableau, SQL, Azure, so on and so forth? So if it is not related to us, do not apply it. And if it is business analysis,
in resume we should mention or not, or we have basic knowledge of SQL, Power BI or something.
Yeah, in your technical skills, you would mention it. That is obvious. But if you are trying to apply for any business analyst role, make sure that you are applying for the correct business analyst role. That is what I'm saying.
Okay. Means what you're saying, I should not go for business analytics, like for if you're deep demanding for SQL or something.
So if you, even though you have a very sound knowledge about SQL also, so when we talk about business analytics, there is coding languages involved. There is this analytical softwares involved. There is data related things are involved. So unless you guys are really willing into going to that business analytics, unless you want to learn all those things, which will take around 6 to 8 months of time to complete all those, I don't think that will be an ideal profession for you to get into currently. And you guys have very much good knowledge into the business analysis. You've gone through the trainings, you've gone through all the things. So whenever you're trying to apply for a business analyst role, try to look at the JD, try to figure out, is this a business analytics role or is this an analysis role? So if it is giving off, the requirement gathering, stakeholder analysis, COML diagram drawing, all this stuff, then it is a job role that we are currently looking for, and you can apply for it. Okay.
Okay.
So that will be the basics, and yes.
So you said that you are going to the website, right? To how to operate SQL.
Okay, to download the the Microsoft SSMS you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, just give me a second.
So is this video recorded, right?
Yes, you will be having this recording sent to you.
Okay.
So normally what you do is you can just type in Microsoft . So you would have this one. So you can go through it. So you can have download Microsoft SQL Server Management. You can just click on it. See, I would have the setup download directly coming up. Is that easy? Just type in Microsoft SSMS download. You can go to the first link, which is docs.microsoft.com, where it says download SQL Server Management Studio. You can just click on it and download SSMS. And if you just click on this link, you'll get it directly downloaded. Okay, done.
So direct download, that's all, right?
Yes, direct download, and you can just install.
Yeah, I tried this one. It is saying that it is going to Microsoft Studio with Azure Database Studio. Something is coming after while running the exe.
Is that so? We can go for this. So if that is not working for you, go for the second link where it says download Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio Express. You can go to here and you can click on this one. You can just click on download anything on a manual version. So if you're still finding any kind of difficulty, just we try to go through YouTube. I think they would give you a very good solution. So I have downloaded directly and I haven't got any kind of problem with it. So I think just go through YouTube and try to search for installation tips for SSMS of Microsoft. And other than this also, so as I have used Microsoft, I am suggesting you this. So there are different things that you can also download. Other than this one, you have Oracle SSMS is there, and that you can download later on. But the interface will be different, so you'll have to try to get used to it later on. And we have MySQL also. So all
sorry.
different
Yeah, Krishna, the interface may be different, but what about the syntax? So where you are shown some syntax how to execute. So even those will change, or it remains the same?
Now the syntax will also be the same. The only thing is in some applications, you might need to use semicolon at the every end. So right now, when we're doing the code, we haven't used any kind of semicolons, right? So in the Microsoft, it is not required. You can just normally go through the code. But in some applications, attach the semicolons at every end. So based on different kinds of server management systems, it differs.
Okay.
So if you want to know more or if you want to learn deep about the SQL language, you can go to W3 Schools. That is one option. Or else you can just go for YouTube for free tutorials and you can just learn from them. And this Microsoft one, try to go through the installation part. It is free. So I've been using the free version currently also. And you can practice on it and you can try to get more practical knowledge on it later. Okay.
Hi. Hello.
Yes.
I have downloaded the Microsoft SQL Server. So what will be the server name?
Server name, normally they would obviously given you some desktop name over there, right?
No, I'm just getting the option over here that is browse for more. I'm not getting any server.
So let me do something. So here, if I click on this, is it showing the same thing? Like when you open it, is it showing that Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio?
Yes.
Is this the one you're getting?
Yes, I'm getting this pop-up, but I'm not getting the server name, anything here. It is only getting the option for browse for more. That's it.
You're good. Now, when you click on the browse for more, what are the things that you're getting?
Nothing. It's empty.
So on the server tab, have you selected the database
Yes, on
engine?
the server type, I'm getting all those options which over it is you are showing.
So are you getting this connection option available without having the server name?
Sorry?
So even without the server name also, are you able to click on this connect?
No, I'm not able to click.
Okay. So we'll do one thing. Just go through different kinds of YouTube lectures wherein they try to guide you through this part. I think that will be better. So if you try to solve this problem, it can be a more 1 hour long video. So try to have these different kinds of tutorials which are already available to have these different softwares, like let it be Microsoft, let it be Oracle, whichever that you are comfortable with. Try to download them without any kind of hassles. Just go through those guides which are available, and I think it will be very much helpful for you to get into this application. Okay.
Okay. After that also, if I can't able to do, to whom should I connect?
About the software, I don't think we'll be able to do much about it, because software installations, whatever that we have told you to provide regarding the MS Visual Azure, you have any problem regarding that, you can contact the COEPD admin. But these outside softwares, all the awareness outside softwares which you can normally directly download through the application, I don't think we'll be able to help you with that. So that is why I'm recommending you to go through the installation process which is already there in YouTube, and try to do in that way.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And guys, once again, if you want to learn more, go through either W3 Schools or any other free resources which are outside available, and you'll be able to get more knowledge regarding it. Okay. So any more doubts you have?
For Mac, what I need to do?
For Mac also, I think you can search for Mac versions, it will be available.
Okay.
Okay, so that will be the end of our session, and a very best of luck for your future careers. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.